The cafe smelled like cinnamon and second chances. Mark hadn't expected that when he pushed through the glass door, his daughter Emma's small hand tucked safely in his. He'd simply needed coffee, real coffee, the kind that didn't come from a machine in his kitchen. At 5 a.m. while packing lunches and signing permission slips and wondering if he was doing any of this right, being a single father to a 6-year-old wasn't something he'd planned. Life had other ideas, as it always does, and now here he was, 34 years old, perpetually exhausted, and so deeply in love with the little girl beside him that sometimes it physically hurt. Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can I have hot chocolate?" "With extra marshmallows," he promised, and her smile, God, that smile, made every sleepless night worth it. They found a corner table near the window, where autumn leaves danced along the sidewalk like nature's confetti. Mark helped Emma out of her pink jacket, the one with the unicorn patch she'd insisted on wearing even though it was getting too small. He made a mental note to buy a new one, adding it to the endless list of things single parents keep tucked in the corners of their minds. That's when he saw her. She was standing behind the counter, tying an apron around her waist, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. For a moment, Mark forgot how to breathe. It had been 12 years, but he would have known her anywhere. The curve of her cheek, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the small scar above her eyebrow from the time they'd gone hiking and she'd walked straight into a low branch while arguing, passionately about her favorite book. Sarah, his first love. His only love if he was being honest with himself in those quiet moments at 2 a.m. when Emma was asleep and the house felt too big and too empty. She looked up and their eyes met across the cafe. He watched the recognition dawn on her face, surprise, then something else he couldn't quite name. Joy, sadness, maybe both, tangled together like the complicated knot their past had become. "Mark?" Her voice carried across the space between them, soft and uncertain. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Sarah, I didn't know you worked here. I own it, actually." She came around the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. "Opened it 3 years ago." They stood there, two people separated by 12 years and 1,000 unspoken words, while the espresso machine hissed in the background and other customers went about their ordinary days, unaware they were witnessing a reunion that felt anything but ordinary. "Daddy?" Emma's voice broke the spell. "Who's that lady?" Mark looked down at his daughter, then back at Sarah, whose eyes had softened in that way they always did when she looked at children. "This is an old friend. Her name is Sarah." "Hi, Emma." Sarah crouched down to Emma's level, and Mark's heart twisted at the gesture. "That's a beautiful unicorn on your jacket." "Thank you. Daddy says we need to get a new one because I'm getting too big. But I don't want to. This one's my favorite." Well, sometimes our favorite things are worth keeping, even when they don't fit quite right anymore. Sarah glanced up at Mark, and he knew she wasn't just talking about the jacket. The next hour passed in a strange, bittersweet blur. Sarah brought them hot chocolate and coffee, refusing to let Mark pay. She sat with them during her break, and Mark watched as she and Emma fell into an easy conversation about unicorns and fairy tales and the little things that matter so much to 6-year-olds. Sarah was natural with her, patient and kind, and Mark felt something crack open in his chest, a door he'd locked a long time ago. "So," Sarah said quietly, when Emma went to look at the bookshelf in the corner where Sarah kept children's books for young customers. A daughter. "She's beautiful, Mark. Thank you. She's everything." He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "Her mom passed away 2 years ago, cancer." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Mark, I'm so sorry. We're managing." "Some days better than others." He paused, then asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "What about you, family?" She shook her head, a sad smile playing at her lips. "No, never quite worked out that way. She trailed off, then started again. "I threw myself into work. Built this place from nothing. It's been good but lonely sometimes, you know." Mark knew. God, did he know. Why did we let it end? The question escaped before he could stop it. "We were so good together, Sarah." "We were young, scared. You wanted to move for that job opportunity, and I wanted to stay close to my sick mother. Neither of us was wrong." but neither of us was willing to compromise either. Her eyes glistened. I've regretted it every day since. I married on the rebound, Mark admitted. Tried to fill the space you left. Emma's mom was a good person, and I cared about her. But it was never— He stopped, not wanting to dishonor his late wife's memory. But Sarah understood. Never the same, she finished softly. Emma came bounding back with a picture book. Miss Sarah, can you read this to me? And Sarah did. She pulled Emma onto her lap and read with different voices for each character while Mark watched, his coffee growing cold, his heart growing warm. He saw his future in that moment, not the lonely, exhausted trudge through single parenthood he'd resigned himself to, but something brighter, something that felt like hope. When they finally left the cafe, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sarah walked them to the door. Come back? She asked, looking at Mark with those eyes he'd never forgotten. Please? Tomorrow, he promised. And the day after that. And the day after that. Emma grabbed Sarah's hand before they left. I really like you. Will you be my friend? Sarah knelt down, tears shining in her eyes. I would love nothing more, sweetheart. Over the following weeks, the cafe became their place. Mark and Emma came every Saturday, and then Wednesdays too. And then Sarah started closing early on Sundays to have dinner with them. She taught Emma to make cookies. She listened to Mark talk about the challenges of single parenthood. She filled the empty spaces in their lives so naturally. It was as if she'd always been there waiting. 3 months later, on a snowy December evening, Sarah locked the cafe door and came to Mark's house for the first time. Emma was asleep upstairs, finally content with a new unicorn jacket that Sarah had helped her pick out, though they'd framed the old one and hung it on Emma's wall, because some things are too precious to discard. I was so lost, Mark whispered, holding Sarah close on the couch. Christmas lights twinkling on the tree Emma had insisted they decorate. And then I walked into that cafe. You weren't lost, Sarah said, kissing him softly. You were exactly where you needed to be. We both were. Sometimes love needs time to become what it's meant to be. Sometimes we need to grow into the people who can appreciate it. Marry me, Mark said, surprising himself. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. When it's right. When Emma's ready. When we've had time to do this properly. But marry me eventually. Sarah, let me spend the rest of my life making up for the 12 years we lost. Sarah smiled through her tears. Yes, someday, definitely, absolutely yes. And upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming of unicorns and fairy tales and happy endings, unaware that her single dad had just found his, waiting for him in a cafe that smelled like cinnamon and second chances.